Untrodden Peaks and Unfrequented Valleys, Section 25. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Untrodden Peaks and Unfrequented Valleys, A Midsummer Ramble Through the Dolomites, by Amelia B. Edwards. Chapter 10, Primiero to Predazzo, Part 2. The view from the bridge at evening, looking over toward Castel Pietra and the mountains at the head of the Primiero Valley, is singularly wild and beautiful. The Cima Cimeda, bristling all over with peaks and pinnacles like a porcupine, the Sas Mayor, a mighty double-headed monster, compared by Mr. Leslie Stephen to the upraised finger and thumb of a gigantic hand, the Cima di Bal, so called after the dauntless author of the Alpine Guide, and a long array of other summits, many of which are nameless to this day, here climb against the sky in strangest outline and take the last glow of the western sun. I name them from here after knowledge, but so many and so bewildering are these Primiero Dolomites, that it is not till one has been a day or two in the place, and has seen them again and again from various points of view, that one comes to identify them with anything like certainty. The Sas Mayor, a corruption of Sasso Maggiore, or Great Rock, must, however, be excepted from this general assertion. It is a mountain which, once seen, can never be mistaken for any other, but which at the same time is only to be viewed under its most extraordinary aspect, from either the Val Privatale or the Val di Canali, two diverging forks of the great upper valley behind the Castel Pietra. We devoted the Monday following our arrival to the Val di Canali, which is undoubtedly the great site of Primiero. The way thither lies through Tonadigo, along the road by which we came down that weary Saturday evening, and up the stony steep crowned by Castel Pietra. Once at the top, we bear away almost due north, leaving to the right the path leading to the Cerrita Pass, and striking up behind the castle along the left bank of a rapid torrent rushing down toward the valley. Having followed this track for about 3/4 of an hour, we emerge upon an open space of grassy lawn about a mile in breadth, by perhaps a mile and a half in length, at the upper end of which stands a modest white house, surrounded by sheds and farm buildings. This little summer residence has been built of late years by Count Welsperg, who also owns a palazzo in Primiero, and whose ancestors, once seigneurs of all the valley, with power of life and death over their vassals, erected yonder castle which, perched on its inaccessible rock like St. Simeon Stylites on his solitary pillar, yet keeps watch and ward at the mouth of the valley. Dark fir slopes enclose this pleasant prairie round about. The torrent brawls unseen in a bushy hollow to the left. Cows and goats browse here and there on the green turf, while the whole pastoral scene is set, as it were, in a cirque of Dolomite peaks of the first magnitude, a cirque with which the Cara Malcora, grand as it is, will not bear a moment's comparison. For the mountains surrounding the Valbuona lie out in a wide amphitheatre, but here the shattered walls of Dolomite, all grey and sulphur-streaked, and touched with rusty red, close in upon the valley in two long serried ranks, not more than a mile and a half apart at their widest point, and narrowing till they meet in the form of an acute angle at the head of the glen. Here, where the sward is smooth, and the space yet broad between, two converging lines of peaks are already arrayed before our eyes, one extending nearly due east and west, the other running up from the southeast to meet it. The first is far the grandest, beginning with the Cima Cimeda, from behind which the Sas Mayor shoots out its extraordinary impending thumb, more of the perpendicular than the leaning tower of Pisa. The chain leads on in one unbroken sweep, giving first a more distant glimpse of the Palle di San Martino, coming next upon the magnificent Cima de Fraudusta, next after that upon two nameless lower peaks, broken up into sheafs of splintered arrowheads, lastly upon the Cima di Canali, apparently loftiest of all the range as seen from this point. No glaciers find a resting place among these perpendicular precipices. Only a narrow ledge outlined in white, or a tiny intermediate plateau sheeted with dazzling snow, serves here and there to mark the line of eternal frost. Two small but very curious features in the scene deserve mention. These are two circular holes, one just piercing the top of a solitary saber-blade splinter jutting out from a buttress of the anonymous peak next before the Cima di Canali on the left of the valley, and another precisely similar peep-hole, piercing a precisely similar saber-blade jutting out from a spur of the Sasso Ortiga on the right of the valley, precisely opposite. What may be the actual diameter of these strange holes I am unable to guess, but they look as clean-cut and about as large as the shot-hole made by a large cannon-ball. Anyone who has ever visited the valley of Grindelwald will remember a similar orifice, locally known as Martin's Lock, in the crest of the Eiger. Waiting here only long enough to get the accompanying outline of the range as seen from Count Welsberg's meadow, we again push on, for clouds are already beginning to gather about the summit of the Cima di Canali, and we are still far from the head of the valley. Hence the path lies for a long way in the shade of the fir woods, then by the side of the torrent bed, here very wide and bordered by a broad tract of glaring white stones, then through more woods, with openings here and there through which the great mountains are seen to be ever closing in, nearer and loftier. For the farther one penetrates up this wonderful glen, the more overwhelming is the effect, till the whole culminates at last in a scene of savage grandeur unsurpassed, if I may venture to say so, by even the great impasse at Macagnana. By the time we reach this ultimate point, however, the rapid mists have already gathered in a way which, though it enhances the mystery and sublimity of the view, is yet sufficiently disappointing at the end of more than 3 hours' journey. The Sasso di Campo, which we are destined never to see clearly, is so shrouded in dense vapours that only the lower flanks of it are seen reaching up into the gloom. The huge Cima di Canali, visible less than an hour ago, towers overhead, already half lost in a heavy grey cloud. A long serrated line of stony coal uniting these two great masses shows all striated and ribbed by the action of prehistoric glaciers. Green pastures, and above these dark fir woods, climb to about 1/3 of the height of the Cima di Canali, while innumerable threads of white waterfall are seen leaping from ledge to ledge, and wavering down the cliffs in every direction. These waters, gathered into 3 roaring torrents, hence rush down from 3 different points, and unite somewhat lower in one broad impetuous stream. The sound of them fills the air like the roaring of the sea upon an iron-bound coast. The fir trees shiver as if a storm were at hand. I doubt if a more lonely, desolate, and tremendous scene is to be found this side of the Andes. So many interesting excursions may be made from Primiero that the traveller who has only 2 or 3 days to dispose of cannot hope to achieve even the half of them. The place, indeed, is one to be chosen for a lengthened sojourn, and treated as headquarters till the neighbourhood is exhausted. We regretted at the time that it was not in our power to do so. The ascent of Monte Pavione, an uncommon-looking mountain in a shape like a stunted pyramid, lying away to the southwest of Primiero, and forming the highest point of the range known as the Vette di Feltre, is said not to be difficult. The view from the summit commands the whole sweep of the Adriatic coast from the mouth of the Isonza at the head of the Gulf of Trieste on the one side, to Chioggia, 20 miles south of Venice, on the other. Many rarest plants are also to be found on the mountain, amongst which the following are enumerated by Ball: Anemone baldensis, Anemone narcissiflora, Ranunculus seguieri and Ranunculus thora, Delphinium montatum, Papaver parisianum, Arabis pumila, Elysium wolfinianum, Cochlearia brevicalis, Alsine lanceolata, Alsine graminifolia, Cerastium tomentosum, Faca frigida, Potentilla nitata, Saxifraga petri, Valeriana elongata, Tarmica oxyloba, Scorzonera purpurea, Pederota ageria, Pederota bonerota, Pedicularis rosea, Primula facini, Cortusa mathioli, Avena hosti, and Asplenium silosi. This excursion involves a night and a hay-bed in a chalet on the Agnerola Alp at the foot of the Pavillon Rocks, but this is a difficulty that would not have deterred us had we been travelling in a larger party. The ascent of Monte Erzon, a mountain rising about 8,700 feet, and situated in a fine central position about 3 miles northwest of Primiero, is also strongly recommended by the local guides. A very interesting excursion, however, and one which can be accomplished all the way on mules, is to the Ponte della Schios on the Monte Verderne, a small wooded mountain bordering the west bank of the Cismone, about 3 miles below Primiero. The way thither lies along the main road as far as the villages of Mezzano and Imer, thence over the Cismone bridge, and up a rough carretta track, all black underfoot from charcoal droppings, which skirts the pine slopes overhanging the gorge of the Noona. The path rises and winds continuously. The Primiero valley is left behind and soon lost to sight. The torrent down below becomes inaudible. We meet a train of mules laden with huge black sacks of charcoal, and have to back up against the rock to let them pass. They, however, according to the nature of mules, prefer the brink of the precipice, and pick their way past with half their bulky burdens overhanging the abyss. At length, when we have mounted to a height of perhaps 1,500 feet above the valley, we pass under an impending roof of rock, and find ourselves at the mouth of a gigantic cavern, which looks as if it might have been scooped out by some mighty water power ages ago, when the world was as yet unfinished. Beyond this cavern there rises a semicircular wall of vertical precipice, at the end of which a small cascade leaps out over the ledge and is dispersed in mist before it reaches the brown pool below. Our path turns abruptly into and round the inside of the cavern, then along a giddy wooden shelf supported on pine trunks driven into the face of the rock wall opposite. This is the Ponte della Schios. The shelf looks horribly unsafe, but is extremely picturesque, and the whole scene, though on a grander scale, reminds one of the cavern and wooden gallery at Tivoli. A little carved and painted Christ under a penthouse roof is fixed against the rock, just at the beginning of the bridge, and an old white-haired man coming down that way pulls off his hat and stays to mutter an Ave as we pass. From this point a short ascent of about another 1,000 feet would bring us out, we are told, upon the Agnerola Alp, but we dare to go no farther, for the sun is already near setting, and we fear to be overtaken by the dusk. Still, it is none the less tantalizing to find that we have made nearly 1/3 of the ascent to Monte Pavillone without knowing it. Leaving Primiero for Predazzo, but stay, how can I leave Primiero without one word of Signor Prospero? Signor Prospero, genial, fussy, courteous, enthusiastic, indefatigable, voluble Signor Prospero, whose glory it is to be a member of the Italian Club Alpino, who believes the British nation to be the most enlightened that the sun shines upon, who so worships the very names of Ball and Leslie Stevens that he all but takes off his hat when he mentions them, as if they were his patron saints, who vaguely imagines that every English tourist must be in some way or other illustrious, that all our autographs are worth having, and that the universal family of Smith represents the flower of the human race. End of section 25.